What if I told you there's a place where the earth still feels untamed, where waterfalls shake the ground, deserts stretch forever, and wild animals move like nothing in the world belongs to anyone? This is Southern Africa, and what you're about to see will change how you look at nature forever. What if I told you there's a place on earth where the ground trembles beneath falling water, where deserts stretch so far they swallow the horizon, and where wild animals still move across the land as they have for thousands of years, untouched, uncontained, and completely free? A place where nature doesn't just exist, it dominates. This is Southern Africa, and once you step into it, the world you thought you knew begins to feel smaller. The journey begins not with a single destination, but with a feeling, a sense that this land operates on a different scale. Here, distances are wider, silence is deeper, and every landscape feels more powerful than expected. The air itself carries something raw, something unfiltered, as if nature has never been softened or reshaped. As the first light of day rises, the land reveals itself slowly. Golden tones stretch across open plains, touching grasses that move gently in the wind. The horizon feels endless, not broken by buildings or structures, but defined only by sky meeting earth. It is a view that doesn't just open outward, it expands your sense of space entirely. In these early moments, everything feels still, but it is not empty. It is waiting for the day to unfold, for movement to begin, for life to reveal itself in its own time. And then, slowly, it does. A distant shape appears on the horizon, then another. Animals begin to move across the land, their silhouettes sharp against the rising light. Each step feels deliberate, part of a rhythm that has existed long before human presence. There is no urgency, no unnecessary motion, just instinct, guiding everything. This is a place where life is not hidden behind fences or boundaries. It exists openly, following paths shaped by water, by seasons, by survival itself. Predators and prey share the same space, creating a balance that feels both fragile and powerful. As the sun climbs higher, the colors of the land begin to change. The gold of morning shifts into brighter tones, revealing details that were hidden in shadow. Textures emerge, the roughness of dry earth, the softness of grasslands, the contrast between open plains and distant hills. But Southern Africa is not defined by one landscape. It is a region of extremes, where environments shift dramatically within the same journey. One moment, you stand in wide, open savanna. The next, you find yourself near dense vegetation, where water brings life into concentrated spaces. And beyond that, entirely different worlds exist. Deserts where silence feels absolute. Coastlines where fog rolls in from the ocean, blurring the boundary between land and sea. Mountains that rise unexpectedly, breaking the horizon with sharp, dramatic lines. Each environment carries its own presence, its own rhythm, its own way of shaping life. And yeah, they all feel connected, part of a larger system that moves and changes over time. As the day continues, the heat becomes more noticeable. The air grows heavier, the light stronger, casting sharper shadows across the land. Activity slows slightly, not stopping, but adjusting. Animals rest, conserving energy, waiting for cooler hours to return. It is in these moments that the stillness becomes more pronounced. The kind of stillness that allows you to hear the smallest sounds. Wind moving through grass, distant calls echoing across open space. The subtle presence of life continuing, even when it is not immediately visible. And then, as afternoon begins to fade, everything shifts again. The light softens, the heat eases, and movement returns. Animals reappear, more active now, taking advantage of the cooler air. The landscape takes on warmer tones, shadows stretching longer, adding depth and dimension to everything you see. This is the time when Southern Africa feels most alive. Not loud, not chaotic, but fully present. Every element working together in a balance that feels natural and unforced. As the sun approaches the horizon, the transformation becomes even more striking. The sky fills with color, deep oranges and reds blending into soft purples and blues. The land reflects these tones, creating a scene that feels almost unreal in its intensity. Silhouettes move across the horizon once more, animals returning to their paths, their shapes dark against the glowing sky. It is a moment that feels timeless, as if it has been repeated for generations without change. And then, night falls. The temperature drops, the air becomes cooler, and the landscape settles into a different kind of stillness. But this is not the end of activity. It is the beginning of something else. Nocturnal life emerges, subtle and often unseen. Sounds replace sights, creating an environment that feels more mysterious, more immersive. The absence of light does not reduce the experience. It deepens it. Above, the sky reveals itself in full clarity. Stars stretch across the horizon, brighter than they seem anywhere else, untouched by artificial light. It creates a sense of scale that goes beyond the land, connecting everything below to something much larger. Standing here, surrounded by such vastness, there is a shift in perspective. The world feels bigger, older, more complex, and at the same time, your place within it feels clearer, more grounded. Southern Africa is not just a destination. It is an experience of scale, of contrast, of life in its most natural form. It does not try to impress through design or structure. It simply exists, fully and unapologetically. And as this journey begins, one realization becomes impossible to ignore: that this land of misty falls and secret sanctuaries is not just something you see, it is something you feel. What if I told you there's a place where a river doesn't simply flow, it disappears into the sky, where millions of liters of water crash into a narrow chasm with such force that the earth trembles, and a cloud of mist rises so high it can be seen from miles away? A place so powerful, so overwhelming, that it feels less like a waterfall and more like a force of nature revealing its full strength. This is Victoria Falls, and nothing prepares you for it. Long before you see it, you hear it. A deep, continuous roar, low at first, then growing louder with every step. It does not sound like water in the distance. It sounds like something alive, something moving with unstoppable energy. The ground beneath your feet seems to carry the vibration, a subtle reminder that what lies ahead is not small, not distant, but immediate and immense. As you approach, the first glimpse is not the waterfall itself, but the mist. Rising in thick white clouds, it drifts above the tree line, catching the sunlight and forming faint rainbows that shift with the wind. It feels surreal, almost disconnected from its source, as if the sky itself is breathing. Then, suddenly, the view opens, and everything changes. A vast curtain of water stretches across the horizon, dropping into a gorge so deep it feels almost invisible. The scale is difficult to process. This is not a single stream or cascade. It is an entire river, the Zambezi, pouring over the edge in a continuous, thunderous flow. The sound becomes overwhelming, filling the air completely. It is not just heard, it is felt. The kind of sound that vibrates through your chest, through the ground, through everything around you. It drowns out all other noise, leaving only the presence of water in motion. Standing at the edge, the power of it becomes undeniable. Sheets of water fall with such force that they break into countless droplets before reaching the bottom, feeding the rising mist that defines this place. The gorge below remains partially hidden, swallowed by clouds of spray that shift and move constantly, revealing and concealing the depth beneath. Wind carries the mist across viewing points, covering everything in a fine layer of water. Within moments, you feel it. Cool, refreshing, yet intense. It is impossible to remain dry here. The waterfall does not allow distance. It surrounds you, pulling you fully into the experience. Rainbows appear and disappear within the mist, their colors shifting as the angle of light changes. At certain moments, they feel almost solid, stretching across the falling water in perfect arcs. At others, they fade into the white clouds, leaving only the sound and motion behind. Moving along the edge, each viewpoint offers a different perspective. Some reveal the full width of the falls, emphasizing their scale. Others bring you closer to the edge, where the drop feels more immediate, more dramatic. Every step changes the experience, but the intensity remains constant. There are moments when the mist grows so thick that the waterfall itself becomes hidden. All you see is white. All you hear is the roar. It is a strange sensation, standing so close to something so massive, yet unable to fully see it. But then, just as quickly, the wind shifts, and the view returns, even more powerful than before. As the day progresses, the light transforms the entire scene. In the morning, softer light creates a more diffused atmosphere, the mist glowing gently, the edges of the falls slightly blurred. By midday, the sun intensifies everything. The The water appears brighter, the rainbow stronger, the contrast sharper. It is a time when the full energy of the falls feels most visible, most alive. Then comes the afternoon, when the light begins to warm. The mist takes on golden tones, the shadows deepen, and the entire landscape feels richer, more layered. The roar remains unchanged, but the atmosphere around it becomes more reflective, more immersive. And as evening approaches, Victoria Falls reveals a quieter side, though the sound never truly fades. The sky shifts into deeper colors, the light softens, and the mist begins to glow in subtle shades of orange and pink. It is a moment where power meets calm, where intensity meets beauty. At night, the experience changes again. Without direct sunlight, the falls become less visible, but their presence remains undeniable. The sound continues, steady and unbroken, filling the darkness with a constant reminder of what lies just beyond sight. On certain nights, under a full moon, a rare phenomenon appears, a lunar rainbow, faint yet visible within the mist. It is a subtle, almost hidden detail, but one that adds another layer to the mystery of this place. There is something about Victoria Falls that goes beyond visual beauty. It is not just what you see, but what you feel standing there. The scale, the sound, the movement, all combining into an experience that feels overwhelming in the best possible way. It reminds you of the raw power of nature, of forces that exist far beyond human control, of moments that cannot be replicated, only experienced. And as you stand at the edge, surrounded by mist and thunder, one realization becomes clear, that some places are not meant to be understood quietly. They are meant to be felt at full force. Victoria Falls is one of those places, a living expression of power, movement, and scale, where the river doesn't just fall, it transforms the entire world around it. What if I told you there's a place where the river doesn't run to the sea? It spreads across the land, turning desert into life and silence into movement. A place where water arrives, not as a flood of destruction, but as a slow, quiet transformation that reshapes everything it touches. This is Okavango Delta, one of the only inland deltas on Earth, where the journey of water doesn't end, it disappears. From above, the Okavango Delta looks like a living map. Channels branch outward in every direction, forming a network that seems almost endless. Patches of green break through the surrounding dryness, creating islands of life in a region that would otherwise remain silent and still. But what makes this place truly remarkable is not just its shape, it's its timing. Each year, water travels from distant highlands, slowly making its way across borders and landscapes before finally reaching this delta. But it does not arrive all at once. It moves gradually, spreading across the land in a way that feels almost intentional. As the water expands, it awakens the delta. Dry ground becomes flooded plains, channels deepen, islands shrink or grow depending on the flow. It is a transformation that happens quietly, without sudden force, yet completely changes the environment. And with that water, life follows. The first signs are subtle. Fresh green shoots begin to appear. Birds return, their calls echoing across the open space. Insects move, small and almost unnoticed, but essential to the balance that is forming. Then, slowly, larger animals begin to arrive. Elephants move through the water, their massive bodies creating ripples that spread outward. Antelope step carefully along the edges of flooded areas, their reflections mirrored perfectly on the surface. Hippos settle into deeper channels, their presence marked only by the occasional movement of water. Predators follow as well, drawn by the abundance of life. Lions move quietly through tall grass, their path shaped by instinct and opportunity. Every movement in the delta is connected, part of a system that functions without interruption. The Okavango is not just a place where animals live. It is a place where they move, where they adapt, where they respond to the changing environment in real time. One of the most unique ways to experience this landscape is from the water itself. Traditional Mokoro canoes glide through narrow channels, guided slowly between reeds and open spaces. The movement is silent, almost effortless, allowing you to become part of the environment rather than separate from it. From this perspective, everything feels closer. The water is calm, reflecting the sky and surrounding vegetation in perfect detail. The sounds are softer, the splash of a paddle, the distant call of birds, the subtle movement of animals nearby. It is an experience that feels intimate, even in a place so vast. As the day unfolds, the light transforms the delta in ways that feel constantly changing. Morning begins with soft tones, mist rising gently from the water, creating a sense of depth that blurs the horizon. By midday, the clarity increases. The sky becomes brighter, the water more reflective, and the colors more vivid. Greens deepen, blues sharpen, and every detail becomes more visible. Then comes the afternoon, when the light begins to warm. Shadows stretch across the flooded plains, adding contrast and texture. The entire landscape feels more defined, more layered, as if revealing its structure more clearly. And as the sun begins to set, the Okavango Delta reaches a moment of quiet intensity. The sky fills with warm colors, gold, orange, and deep red. These tones reflect perfectly on the water, creating a mirror that doubles the entire scene. Animals move across the horizon, their silhouettes sharp against the glowing light. It is a moment that feels timeless, one that could belong to any point in history, unchanged and uninterrupted. As night falls, the delta transforms once again. The heat of the day fades, replaced by cooler air that carries different sounds. Nocturnal life begins to emerge, subtle but present. The water remains still, reflecting the faint light of the moon and stars above. Without artificial light, the sky becomes vast, filled with countless points of brightness that seem almost within reach. The sounds of the delta shift. Insects hum softly, distant calls echo across the water, and the quiet movement of life continues unseen. It is a different kind of awareness, one that relies less on sight and more on presence. There is something deeply unique about the Okavango Delta. It challenges the idea of what a river should do, where it should go, how it should behave. Instead of rushing to the ocean, it spreads, slows, and eventually disappears into the land. It is a place defined not by endings, but by transformation. And as you drift through its channels, surrounded by life that exists because of this quiet, continuous flow, one realization becomes clear: that some of the most extraordinary places on Earth are not shaped by force, but by patience. The Okavango Delta is one of those places, a living, breathing system where water becomes life, and where every moment is part of a cycle that never truly stops. What if I told you there's a place on Earth where time is written in sand, where the dunes rise like frozen waves, shaped by winds that have been moving for millions of years? A place so ancient, so still, that even the silence feels heavy. This is Namib Desert, one of the oldest deserts on the planet, where emptiness becomes something unforgettable. The first thing you notice is the scale. Not just distance, but depth. The land stretches endlessly, yet it never feels flat. Instead, it rises and falls in vast curves of sand, forming dunes that tower above the horizon. Their shapes are smooth, almost perfect, as if sculpted carefully rather than created by chance. The color defines everything: deep orange, almost red in places, shifting with the light from soft gold to intense copper. It is a color that feels alive, changing constantly as the sun moves across the sky. And then there is the silence. Not the absence of sound, but a presence so complete it feels almost physical. No traffic, no distant hum, no interruptions. Just a faint whisper of wind moving across the dunes, shaping them grain by grain, moment by moment. As the sun rises, the desert begins to reveal its structure. Shadows stretch across the dunes, creating sharp contrasts between light and dark. Each ridge becomes more defined, every curve more visible. It is a landscape that transforms with light, never looking the same twice. Climbing a dune is not simple. The sand shifts beneath each step, pulling you back slightly, making progress slow and deliberate. But with every step upward, the perspective changes. The view expands, revealing layers of dunes stretching far into the distance. At the top, the world feels completely open. There are no boundaries, no clear edges, just an endless sea of sand rolling outward in every direction. It is a view that feels both vast and deeply quiet, a reminder of how small everything else becomes in comparison. But the Namib is not empty. Life exists here, adapted to conditions that seem almost impossible. Small tracks appear in the sand, marking the paths of insects and animals that move mostly at night. Plants cling to survival, drawing moisture from fog that rolls in from the distant Atlantic Ocean. This fog is one of the desert's most unique features. In the early morning, It drifts across the dunes, softening their edges and creating an atmosphere that feels almost surreal. For a brief moment, the desert loses its sharp clarity, becoming something more dreamlike. As the fog lifts, the heat begins to rise. By midday, the sun is intense, the light direct, casting minimal shadows. The dunes appear smoother, their textures less pronounced, but their scale even more overwhelming. The air feels heavier now, the silence deeper. Movement slows, and the desert reveals its more demanding side. It is a place that does not adapt to you. You adapt to it. Then comes the afternoon, when the light begins to soften again. This is when the desert reveals its most striking contrasts. Long shadows stretch across the dunes, creating patterns that feel almost geometric. The ridges become sharper, the depth more visible. Colors intensify once more, shifting into deeper tones of red and orange. It is a moment where the landscape feels most alive, even in its stillness. And then there is Dedvle, a place where the desert tells a different kind of story. Here, the white clay pan sits surrounded by towering dunes, creating a contrast so stark it feels almost unreal. Dark, ancient trees stand frozen in time, their branches reaching outward, lifeless yet perfectly preserved. These trees have stood here for hundreds of years, unable to decay in the dry conditions. They are not symbols of death, but of endurance, of time passing in a way that feels both visible and still. Walking through this space feels different from anywhere else in the desert. The ground is firm beneath your feet, the air still, the silence even more pronounced. It is a place that invites reflection, where every detail feels significant. As evening approaches, the Namib Desert transforms once again. The light softens into warm tones, casting a golden glow across the dunes. The temperature begins to drop, bringing a sense of relief after the intensity of the day. Shadows grow longer, stretching across the sand in lines that feel almost endless. The landscape becomes more dramatic, more defined, as if revealing its final form before night. And then the sun sets. The sky fills with color, deep oranges fading into purples and blues. The dunes, once bright and vivid, turn into silhouettes, their shapes still visible but softened by the fading light. When darkness arrives, the desert reveals one of its most powerful features, the sky. Without artificial light, the stars appear in incredible clarity. They stretch across the horizon, countless and bright, creating a sense of scale that goes beyond the land itself. The silence remains, but now it feels different. Not empty, but complete. A stillness that allows everything else to stand out more clearly. There is something about the Namib Desert that changes your understanding of space and time. It is not a place of constant activity or movement. It is a place of presence, of being fully aware of your surroundings, of the light, the air, the ground beneath your feet. It reminds you that beauty does not always come from complexity. Sometimes, it comes from simplicity, from a single color, a single shape, repeated endlessly yet never losing its impact. And as you stand among these ancient dunes, watching the last light fade into night, one realization becomes clear, that some places are not defined by what they contain, but by what they leave out. The Namib Desert is one of those places, a world of silence, scale, and time, where every grain of sand holds a piece of something far older than anything you can see. What if I told you there's a place where the wild still decides what happens next, where every sound in the distance could be a story unfolding, and where survival is not hidden, but happening right in front of you? A place where you are not the center of the world, you are just passing through it. This is Kruger National Park, one of the last great sanctuaries where nature still moves on its own terms. The journey begins before the sun rises. The air is cool, carrying the faint scent of dry earth and vegetation. The sky is still dark, but slowly, a thin line of light appears on the horizon, signaling the start of a new day. And in this place, the beginning of the day matters, because this is when the wild is most active. As the first light spreads across the landscape, the shapes of trees and grasslands begin to take form. Shadows stretch long across the ground, creating depth and contrast that reveal movement more clearly. At first, it feels quiet, but then you start to notice the details. A distant call echoes through the trees. Birds begin to move, their wings cutting through the cool morning air. The soft sound of footsteps in dry grass hints at something nearby, something you cannot yet see. And then, suddenly, the wild reveals itself. A herd of elephants appears, moving slowly across the open land. Their size is undeniable, yet their movement is calm, almost gentle. Each step is deliberate, each interaction within the group subtle but meaningful. Nearby, antelope graze cautiously, their ears constantly alert, scanning for any sign of danger. Every movement here is connected to awareness, to survival. Nothing is random. Everything has purpose. As the sun rises higher, the landscape becomes clearer. Kruger is not one single environment. It is a vast, diverse space where grasslands, woodlands, and river systems come together. Each area supports different forms of life, creating a dynamic ecosystem that is constantly shifting. Water becomes a focal point. Rivers and watering holes draw animals from every direction. It is here that life concentrates, where interactions become more frequent, more intense. A group of buffalo gathers at the edge of the water, their presence strong and unified. In the distance, a lone predator watches, patient, waiting for the right moment. It is a reminder that this balance is delicate, shaped by instincts that have been refined over countless generations. The longer you stay, the more you begin to understand the rhythm of this place. It is not chaotic. It is structured in a way that is not immediately obvious, but deeply consistent. Midday brings a shift. The heat rises, the sun becomes intense, and activity slows. Animals retreat into shade, conserving energy. The landscape feels quieter, almost still, but never empty. This is when the details become more noticeable. The patterns of bark on trees, the texture of the ground, the way light filters through leaves, creating shifting shadows that move gently with the wind. Even in rest, the wild remains present. A lion lies beneath a tree, its breathing slow, its eyes occasionally opening, always aware. Nearby, smaller animals move carefully, taking advantage of the temporary calm. Time here does not feel rushed. It stretches, allowing moments to unfold naturally. There is no need to force an experience. It happens when it happens. Then, as afternoon begins to fade, everything changes again. The temperature drops slightly, the light softens, and movement returns. This is when the energy of the park rises once more. Animals reappear, more active now. A group of giraffes moves gracefully across the landscape, their long shadows stretching behind them. Zebras gathering open areas, their patterns standing out sharply in the golden light. And then, there are moments that feel almost cinematic. A predator begins to move. Slow, focused, almost invisible against the terrain. Every step calculated, every pause intentional. The tension builds, not through noise, but through silence. Whether the hunt succeeds or not is almost secondary. What matters is the process, the precision, the raw expression of survival in its most natural form. As the sun moves closer to the horizon, the entire landscape transforms. The sky fills with warm tones, casting a soft haze that adds depth to every scene. Silhouettes become more defined. Animals moving across the horizon appear almost timeless, their shapes unchanged by the passing of years. It is a moment that feels connected to something much older than the present. And then, night falls. But in Kruger, night is not an ending. It is a new beginning. The sounds change completely. Daytime calls fade, replaced by deeper, more mysterious tones. The distant roar of a lion, the sharp cry of nocturnal birds, the subtle movement of creatures that remain hidden in the darkness. Without light, your awareness shifts. You listen more. You feel the environment in a different way. The unseen becomes just as important as the visible. Above, the sky opens fully, filled with stars that stretch endlessly. It creates a sense of scale that goes beyond the land itself, connecting the wild below to the vastness above. There is something about Kruger National Park that changes your perspective. It reminds you that the world is not built for comfort or control. It is built on balance, on interaction, on constant movement and adaptation. Here, you are not the observer controlling the scene. You are simply present within it. And as you sit in the quiet of the African night, surrounded by sounds that carry across the darkness, one realization becomes clear: that some places are not meant to be tamed. They are meant to remain wild. Kruger is one of those places. A living, breathing world where every moment is real, every movement matters, and where nature continues exactly as it was meant to be. What if I told you there's a place where mountains meet the ocean in perfect balance, where a modern city exists, without overpowering the wild, and where every horizon feels carefully designed by nature itself? A place where you can stand between two oceans, look up at towering peaks, and still feel completely grounded. This is Cape Town, a city that doesn't compete with nature, it lives alongside it. From the very first moment, Cape Town feels different. The air carries a mix of ocean breeze and mountain freshness, creating an atmosphere that feels open and expansive. It is not confined by buildings or streets. It breathes outward, shaped by the landscapes that surround it. And at the center of it all stands Table Mountain. Flat-topped and unmistakable, it rises above the city like a natural landmark that defines everything around it. Its presence is constant, visible from almost every angle, reminding you that nature here is never far away. As the day begins, the mountain often wears a thin layer of cloud, slowly rolling over its edges like a soft blanket. Locals call it the tablecloth, and watching it move feels almost hypnotic, as if the mountain itself is alive. From the top, the view stretches endlessly. The city spreads out below, framed by coastline that curves gently along the edge of the ocean. The water shifts in color depending on the light, from deep blue to soft turquoise, reflecting the sky above. But Cape Town is not just about what you see from above. It is about how everything connects below. The coastline offers a completely different perspective. Beaches stretch along the Atlantic, their white sand contrasting sharply with dark blue water. Waves roll in steadily, creating a rhythm that feels both powerful and calming. Places like Camps Bay and Clifton reveal a side of the city that feels relaxed yet vibrant. People gather along the shore, not in the rush, but in a way that reflects the pace of the environment. It is a space where the city slows down, allowing the ocean to set the tone. Further along, the landscape begins to change. The road winds along cliffs, revealing views that feel almost cinematic. Mountains rise on one side, the ocean drops away on the other, creating a sense of depth that is constantly shifting as you move. This is where Cape Town feels most unique. It is not one environment, but many existing together. Urban life, coastal beauty, and mountainous terrain, all within reach of each other. As you move through the city itself, the energy becomes more noticeable. Streets are active, filled with people, markets, and everyday life. But even here, the presence of nature remains. Look in any direction, and you will find it. The mountain, the ocean, the sky stretching wide above everything. There is a sense of openness that defines this place. Even in its busiest areas, it never feels closed or confined. It feels connected to something larger. As the day progresses, the light begins to transform the city in subtle ways. Morning brings clarity, soft tones that highlight the natural colors of the landscape. By midday, everything becomes more vivid, sharper, more defined. Then comes the afternoon, when the light begins to warm. This is when Cape Town reveals its most cinematic side. Shadows stretch across the city, the mountains take on deeper tones, and the ocean reflects the changing sky in richer colors. Sunset here is not just a moment, it is an experience. The sky fills with layers of color, orange, pink, purple, blending together in a way that feels almost unreal. The sun dips slowly toward the horizon, casting a golden glow across both land and sea. From places like Signal Hill or Lion's Head, the view becomes even more powerful. The entire city is visible, framed by mountains and ocean, all illuminated by the final light of the day. It is a moment that feels complete, balanced, almost perfect in its composition. And then, as the sun disappears, the city transforms once again. Lights begin to appear, scattered across the landscape like reflections of the stars above. The energy shifts from natural to urban, but without losing its connection to the surroundings. The coastline remains visible, the sound of waves continuing in the background. The mountain stands dark against the sky, its outline still present, still defining the space. Night in Cape Town carries a different kind of rhythm. It is active, but not overwhelming, social, but not chaotic. It feels like an extension of the day rather than a complete change. Looking up, the sky reveals itself once more. Though touched by city lights, it still holds a sense of openness, a reminder that this place exists between worlds, between nature and civilization, between stillness and movement. There is something about Cape Town that leaves a lasting impression. It is not just its beauty, but its balance. The way everything exists together without one overpowering the other. It shows that a city does not have to disconnect from nature to grow, that it can evolve while still respecting the landscapes that surround it. And as you stand between mountain and ocean, feeling the breeze move through a space that feels both vast and grounded, one realization becomes clear, that some places are not defined by what they build, but by what they choose to live alongside. Cape Town is one of those places, a city shaped not just by people, but by the powerful, enduring presence of the natural world that surrounds it. What if I told you there's a place where the mountains don't just rise, they guard something ancient, where cliffs stretch into the sky like walls of a forgotten world, and valleys echo with stories older than memory. A place where every step feels like you're walking through time itself. This is Drakensberg Mountains, a landscape of giants, where nature feels both powerful and deeply sacred. The journey begins with distance. From afar, the Drakensberg Range appears as a dark line against the horizon, its peaks rising slowly into view. But as you move closer, that line transforms into something far more dramatic. Massive cliffs emerge, their faces sheer and imposing, creating a natural barrier that feels almost impenetrable. The name itself carries meaning, Dragon Mountains. And standing here, it becomes clear why. There is something mythical about these peaks, something that feels larger than simple geography. As the day begins, the mountains are often wrapped in mist. Clouds drift low across the valleys, clinging to the edges of cliffs, revealing and hiding the landscape in shifting layers. It creates a sense of mystery, as if the mountains are choosing what to show and what to keep hidden. Walking into this environment feels different from any other landscape. The air is cooler, thinner, carrying a freshness that feels clean and sharp. The ground beneath your feet changes with every step, from soft grasslands to rocky paths that wind upward toward higher elevations. Streams cut through the valleys, their water clear and cold, flowing steadily over stone. These are not large rivers, but they carry a sense of life that connects the entire landscape. As you climb higher, the perspective begins to change. Valleys open below you, stretching outward in layers of green and shadow. The cliffs rise above, their edges sharp against the sky, creating a sense of scale that is both overwhelming and grounding at the same time. The silence here is different. It is not empty. It is filled with subtle sounds. Wind moving across the peaks, water flowing in the distance, the occasional call of a bird echoing through the valleys. It is a silence that feels alive. But the Drakensberg is not just about natural beauty. It holds something deeper, a connection to the past that is still visible today. Hidden within these mountains are ancient rock shelters, their walls covered with paintings created by the Sand people thousands of years ago. These artworks are not large or dramatic, but they carry a quiet significance. They tell stories of life, of animals, of survival and belief, preserved in a way that feels almost timeless. Standing before them, there is a sense of connection that goes beyond the present, a reminder that these mountains have been lived in, understood, and respected long before modern exploration. As the day progresses, the light begins to reveal the full detail of the landscape. Morning mist lifts, exposing the textures of rock and grass, the depth of valleys, the sharp lines of ridges. By midday, the clarity is complete. The sky stretches wide above, deep blue against the rugged terrain. Every detail becomes visible, every layer defined. It is a moment where the full scale of the Drakensberg can be seen clearly, without interruption. Then comes the afternoon, when the light begins to soften. This is when the mountains reveal their most dramatic form. Shadows stretch across the cliffs, emphasizing their height and structure. The valleys take on deeper tones, creating contrast that adds depth to every view. It is a time when the landscape feels most powerful, not because of movement, but because of presence. And then, as evening approaches, everything changes once again. The sky begins to warm, colors shifting into gold and orange. The cliffs catch the last light, glowing briefly before fading into shadow. The valleys darken, creating a layered effect that feels almost cinematic. It is a moment that feels still, as if the mountains themselves are pausing before night arrives. When darkness falls, the Drakensberg becomes something entirely different. Without the distraction of daylight, the scale becomes harder to see, but easier to feel. The air grows cooler, the sounds become more distinct, and the sky above opens fully. Stars appear in incredible clarity, stretching across the horizon in patterns that feel endless. Without artificial light, the connection between earth and sky becomes stronger, more immediate. The mountains, now dark silhouettes, stand quietly beneath this vast sky, their presence still undeniable. There's something about the Drakensberg that changes the way you experience landscapes. It is not just about height or size. It is about depth, of time, of history, of presence. It reminds you that some places are not meant to be rushed through. They are meant to be experienced slowly, step by step, moment by moment. And as you stand on a ridge, looking out across valleys that stretch beyond sight, one realization becomes clear: that some landscapes are not just seen, they are felt in a way that stays with you long after you leave. The Drakensberg Mountains are one of those places, a world of stone, sky, and silence, where every peak holds a story, and every step brings you closer to something timeless. What if I told you there's a place where the ocean doesn't welcome you? It warns you? Where fog rolls in like a silent wall, swallowing the horizon, and the coastline is scattered with the remains of ships that never made it back. A place so raw, so unforgiving, that even the land feels unfinished. This is Skeleton Coast, a shoreline where survival is never guaranteed. Long before you arrive, the atmosphere begins to change. The air cools slightly, carrying a faint scent of salt and something older, something untouched. The sky often appears pale, almost washed out, as if the color has been pulled away by the vastness of the ocean. And then the fog appears. It moves slowly, quietly, drifting in from the Atlantic, covering the land in a soft, dense layer that blurs everything. One moment, the coastline stretches clearly ahead. The next, it disappears completely, replaced by a white silence that feels endless. This fog is not just a visual element. It defines the entire environment. It shapes how you see, how you move, how you experience the land. It creates a sense of isolation that feels both calm and unsettling at the same time. As the fog begins to lift, the coastline reveals itself, and what you see is unlike any other place. Waves crash against a narrow strip of sand, their movement constant, their sound steady and unbroken. The ocean here feels powerful, not inviting. Its surface dark, its rhythm relentless, as if it is always in motion, always pushing forward. Beyond the water, the land rises into dry, barren terrain. Sand meets stone, creating a landscape that feels stripped down to its most basic elements. There are no lush greens, no soft transitions, just contrast, ocean and desert, meeting without compromise. And scattered along this coastline are the remains of ships, rusting hulls, broken structures, partially buried in sand. These are not placed here as monuments. They are the result of real journeys that ended unexpectedly. Caught between fog, currents, and shifting sands, these ships became part of the land itself. Each one tells a silent story of navigation gone wrong, of conditions too harsh to overcome, of a coastline that does not forgive mistakes. Walking along the Skeleton Coast, there is a sense of distance that is difficult to describe. Not just physical distance, but emotional distance from everything familiar. It feels removed from the rest of the world, operating under its own rules, its own conditions. And yet, even here, life exists. It is not obvious at first. You have to look closely. Tracks in the sand reveal movement. Small creatures adapted to survive in conditions that seem impossible. Seals gather along parts of the coast, their presence unexpected against such a harsh backdrop. They move between land and water, navigating an environment that feels constantly shifting. Birds appear as well, their flight cutting through the fog, their calls echoing briefly before being absorbed by the open space. Life here is not abundant. It is resilient. As the day progresses, the light begins to transform the coastline. When the fog lifts completely, the sky opens up, revealing a deeper blue that contrasts sharply with the muted tones of the land. The ocean reflects this color, but never fully softens. It remains strong, its waves consistent, its movement constant. By midday, the sun brings clarity. Details become sharper. The textures of sand, rock, and rusted metal stand out more clearly. The landscape feels more defined, yet no less harsh. Then comes the afternoon, when the light begins to warm. Shadows stretch across the sand, adding depth and contrast. The shipwrecks take on deeper tones, their shapes more dramatic against the fading light. It is a time when the coastline feels most cinematic, not because it becomes softer, but because its rawness becomes more visible. As evening approaches, the skeleton coast reveals a quieter side. The wind often slows, the waves continue, but the atmosphere becomes more still. The sky begins to change, colors shifting into soft oranges and bada pinks. The ocean reflects these tones briefly, creating a moment of calm that feels almost unexpected. Shipwrecks stand in silhouette now, their outlines sharp against the fading light. They feel less like objects and more like reminders of time, of history, of the power of nature. And then, night falls. The fog may return, covering the land once more, or the sky may open completely, revealing stars that stretch across the horizon. In the darkness, the coastline becomes even more mysterious. Sounds carry further. The crash of waves feels louder, more present. The absence of light creates a sense of space that is difficult to measure. There is something about the skeleton coast that stays with you, not because it is comfortable, but because it is real. It does not try to soften its edges or hide its nature. It shows you exactly what it is: raw, powerful, and unchanged. It reminds you that not all beauty is gentle. Some of it is harsh, shaped by conditions that demand respect rather than admiration. And as you stand on this remote shoreline, with fog moving across the land and waves crashing endlessly against the sand, one realization becomes clear: that some places are not meant to welcome you, they are meant to test you. The skeleton coast is one of those places, a word of silence, storm, and survival, where the line between land and sea is never truly stable, and where every moment feels shaped by forces far beyond control. What if I told you the true soul of Southern Africa isn't found in its landscapes alone, but in the people who carry its stories, its rhythms, and its spirit every single day? Beyond the deserts, beyond the mountains, beyond the roaring waterfalls, there is a deeper journey waiting, one that doesn't begin with a view, but with a connection. Because here, culture is not something you visit, it's something you feel the moment you arrive. In the early morning, before the heat rises and the land begins to move, there is a quiet rhythm that unfolds across towns and villages. The air feels softer, the light more gentle, and the first signs of life appear in simple, familiar ways. Doors open, footsteps echo on dusty paths, and the day begins not with urgency, but with intention. Markets slowly come alive. Stalls are arranged with care, filled with fresh produce, handcrafted goods, and items that reflect both necessity and tradition. There is no rush to compete, no overwhelming noise. Instead, there is a steady flow of interaction, conversations that feel natural, exchanges that go beyond transactions. People greet each other not out of habit, but out of respect. Acknowledgement here matters. It builds connection, reinforces community, and creates a sense of belonging that extends beyond individuals. As the day unfolds, the rhythm becomes more visible. In urban spaces, movement increases. Streets fill with activity, transport flows, and the pace quickens. Yet even here, there is a balance, a structure within the movement that keeps everything connected rather than chaotic. In rural areas, life follows a different tempo. The land plays a central role, shaping daily routines in ways that feel deeply rooted. Farming, herding, gathering, these are not just tasks, but traditions carried forward through generations. Knowledge is passed down not through instruction alone, but through experience, through observation, through time. There is a strong sense of identity in these communities. It appears in clothing, in language, in the way people carry themselves. Patterns, colors, and materials reflect heritage, each detail holding meaning that goes beyond appearance. Music is never far away. It may begin as a distant rhythm, barely noticeable at first, a drumbeat carried on the wind, a melody rising from a group gathered in the shade. But as you move closer, it becomes something more, something alive. Music here is not reserved for performance. It exists in everyday life, in celebration, in storytelling, in moments of connection. It brings people together, creating an energy that feels immediate and powerful. Dance follows naturally. Movement becomes expression, each step reflecting emotion, history, and identity. It is not about perfection. It is about presence, about being fully engaged in the moment. Food, too, carries deep meaning. Meals are prepared with care, often shared among family and friends. Ingredients are simple, but the process holds value. Cooking becomes a space for connection, for conversation, for maintaining traditions that define the culture. Flavors reflect the land, rich, grounded, and balanced. Each dish tells a story, shaped by environment, by history, by the people who prepare it. As afternoon turns to evening, the atmosphere begins to shift. The intensity of the day softens, replaced by a more relaxed energy. People gather outside, sitting together, sharing stories, reflecting on the day. It is in these moments that the sense of community becomes most visible. There is no need for distraction. Presence is enough. Children play nearby, their laughter adding lightness to the environment. Elders share knowledge, their voices carrying experience that connects past and present. It is a continuity that feels natural, unforced. As night falls, the world does not fade, it transforms. In some places, it becomes vibrant. Lights appear, music grows stronger, and the energy rises. In others, it becomes quieter, more reflective. The pace slows, allowing space for rest and stillness. But even in its quietest moments, there is a sense of life that continues. Conversations linger, connections remain, and the rhythm never fully stops. Looking up, the sky reveals itself in full clarity. Stars stretch across the horizon, connecting everything below to something much larger. It is a reminder that this culture, these people, this way of life, all exist within a world that is both vast and deeply connected. There is something about Southern Africa that changed your understanding of culture. It is not defined by monuments or landmarks. It is defined by people, by how they live, how they connect, how they carry their traditions forward while adapting to the present. It shows that culture is not something separate from daily life. It is built into it, in every greeting, every shared meal, every rhythm that moves through a community. And as you step back from the landscapes and begin to see the people who give them meaning, one realization becomes clear, that the true beauty of this region is not just in what you see, but in what you feel when you become part of its human rhythm. Because Southern Africa is not only a place of natural wonders, it is a place of living stories carried forward every single day. What if I told you Southern Africa isn't something you simply travel through? It's something that stays with you long after you've left, not because of one place or one moment, but because of everything coming together at once. The silence of deserts, the roar of waterfalls, the endless movement of wildlife, and the quiet strength of its people. All of it blending into a single memory that refuses to fade, because this is not a destination that ends when the journey does. It continues inside you, from the first light over open savannas to the last glow fading behind distant mountains. Southern Africa moves like a story written in contrasts. Nothing here exists in isolation. Every landscape speaks to another. Every experience connects to something larger. You remember standing at the edge of Victoria Falls, where the earth seemed to disappear into falling water. The sound alone felt like a force of nature, deep enough to shake your sense of scale. Mist rising so high it touched the sky, turning sunlight into floating rainbows that never stayed still. And then, not far from that intensity, the quiet flow of the Okavango Delta, water spreading across dry land like a slow awakening, bringing life into places that seemed still only moments before. Elephants moving through channels, birds returning to wetlands, the entire ecosystem shifting with quiet precision. Far away again, the land changes completely. The endless curves of the Namib Desert rise like frozen waves of sand, shaped by wind older than memory. A place where silence becomes the loudest presence, and where even time feels stretched and slow. And on the edge of the ocean, the harsh beauty of the skeleton coast reminds you that not all landscapes are gentle. Fog rolls in without warning, waves crash against forgotten shores, and rusted remains of ships stand as quiet witnesses to nature's power. Then there are the wild heartlands, like Kruger National Park, where life unfolds without permission or pause. Lions moving through tall grass, herds crossing open plains, predators and prey sharing the same space in a balance that feels ancient and unbroken. Above it all, cities like Cape Town sit between ocean and mountain, where modern life exists without disconnecting from nature. Table Mountain watches over everything, sometimes hidden in cloud, sometimes revealed in full clarity, as if deciding when to appear. And deeper inland, the peaks of the Drakensberg Mountains rise like natural walls between earth and sky. Valleys, carved over millions of years, mist drifting through ridges, ancient rock art, still holding the memory of those who came before. Even at the edges, like the storm-worn coast of the Skeleton Coast or the flowing waters of the Delta, nothing feels disconnected. Everything is part of the same vast system, and yet, as powerful as these places are individually, the real impact comes when they begin to connect in memory, because you don't remember them as separate scenes anymore. You remember movement, the way fog rolls across desert dunes, the way water disappears into wetlands, the way mountains rise above cities, the way wildlife moves without borders. Southern Africa becomes less about location and more about rhythm. A rhythm shaped by contrast, stillness and motion, silence and sound, harshness and beauty, survival and abundance. And somewhere within that rhythm, you begin to notice something deeper. Nothing here is static. Everything adapts, everything responds, everything continues. Even time feels less like something fixed and more like something flowing through landscapes that refuse to stay the same. As the journey moves from day into night, that feeling grows stronger. The sky opens, wider than expected. Stars appear without interruption, filling the darkness above deserts, rivers, mountains, and oceans alike. It is the same sky, yet it feels different depending on where you stand. In the silence of open land, it feels infinite. In the presence of water, it feels reflective. In the shadow of mountains, it feels close enough to touch. And in that moment, everything aligns. The landscapes you've seen are no longer separate experiences. They become chapters of the same story, a story written not in words, but in space, scale, and silence. Southern Africa doesn't try to overwhelm you. It doesn't need to. It simply exists in extremes and lets you find your place between them. And as this journey comes to an end, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. That some parts of the world don't just show you beauty. They reshape the way you understand it. And once you've seen Southern Africa this way, you don't really leave it behind. And now, as the journey fades into silence, Southern Africa doesn't really feel like something you've seen. It feels like something you've experienced. From the thunder of waterfalls to the stillness of deserts, from endless wildlife plains to quiet mountain horizons. Every part of this land carries its own rhythm, yet somehow, they all belong to the same story. A story written not in words, but in wind, water, stone, and life itself. And maybe that's the real truth about places like this. They don't end when you leave them. They continue quietly, in memory, in feeling, in the way you see the world after. Because some journeys don't stay behind you, they stay with you. Thanks for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed exploring Prague as much as I enjoyed guiding you through it. If you found this travel guide helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more beautiful destinations from around the world. Got a favorite spot in Prague? Drop it in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, safe travels and see you in the next video.